I have to save money, so I'm not allowed to buy any new padlocks. I bought a DLC for Overcooked yesterday,
Yeah.
and that was like the first thing I bought for myself in like a couple of weeks. It was like $10, and some of the locks I want are also like $10 to $15. But I'm like, I really shouldn't. That's like the last thing I need right now is like get a blue belt lock. You know?
Can you just like go to like Ace Hardware and buy a lock and
No.
just practice on that?
I can.
Like just any padlock?
Yeah, I can, but the thing is, like, there's different security levels for locks. So if I go to Ace Hardware, I'm going to get a very low security lock. I have 4 main locks that I practice on, and they're all super easy. I can pick them all within seconds.
Are they is there like a set scale for difficulty across
They-
lock makers?
Against lock makers, not necessarily makers, because like different makers will have different levels of security. I don't know if there's like an official like ranking for that, but there's things like security pins where if you have a security pin, it's significantly harder to pick the lock than one without security pins. So most standard locks that you get for your house, for your car, for just any general padlock that you can buy in the store will not have security pins. There are some Brinks locks that are sold at some Home Depots that have security pins in them. And Home Depot is about to start selling another set of locks that are called Pack Lock, and those are all have security pins as well. And they're fairly high ranking. They're what's called a blue belt rank lock, and that's fairly high up there. That's like getting close to like actual high security locks. But yeah, it's kind of terrifying knowing that you have the most insecure locks on almost all of your stuff, and it's very hard to find anything better.
I mean, like cheap out, right?
It sucks. It's terrifying. Like with my skill, like I was able to unlock a standard master lock padlock my second day of picking using tools I made out of nails.
Do you have your tools with you?
I don't. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was gonna say you could try and break into our apartment if you want.
I'm sure I could, but the thing is, like, there's like rules to it, right? If you're like out kind of as a lock picker, you're not allowed to lock pick anything that's currently in use, mostly so you don't break it.
Are these laws or just like a code of ethics?
It's a code of ethics.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like, you know, when you become a doctor, they always say do no harm or whatever.
Basically, yeah. But I know I can do it fairly easily.
You know you can do the harm. You just choose not to.
Yeah, basically.
That's the cool thing.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you're working on this skill, even if your character in game can't do it at all.
What? No, that's true. You're right. Am I in the D&D session?
That was hilarious when you guys were trying to do the heist, and then you got to the first locked door. I was like, shit, I guess I'm just gonna sit down and read a book.
It's like, oh wait, I know help is coming.
Yeah, for sure.
So, looking up at the shelf now and seeing all your little minifigures, I realized the other day I was searching in my closet and I found a little D&D minifigure. I was gonna bring it out at some point.
Of what monster?
I don't know.
What does it look like?
It's like a lizard cat. Hold on, I'll be back. Talk.
Here. Speaking about miniatures, let me show you one I got in a mystery pack.
Oh, now you're
recently.
going?
No, I'm not leaving. Check out this motherfucker.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. I think it's the biggest miniature I have. No, that's a lie.
No, you have a couple of dragons that are pretty big. So this is like if a centipede and a dragon had a baby.
So what does it say on the bottom?
Oh, Behir. Behir.
Ooh, Behirs are nice.
27 out of 44. Is that like the monster number?
It's the
I can't imagine that's a production number because you got this out of a rando box.
It's kind of like booster cards where like they'll come out with a
It's the
set or
27th
something.
of the
Yeah,
set.
so it's
Okay,
like the
I see.
27th of that current set that they came out with. It's pre-painted, which like it's really hard for me to get pre-painted minis anywhere. But yeah, Behirs are fun. They're kind of like
It's pretty scary. I like it.
giant. Imagine like an eel, mixed with a hydra. I guess that's a good way to put it.
I can see that. I'm seeing like snake, ram, centipede.
Yeah,
is what it looks
has
like.
a really baller lightning attack.
The new Ford.
That's cool.
Snake Ram.
Snake, ram, centipede.
Oh, that's cool. It's literally just like a lizard dude with a giant club.
It's a
Nice.
dark talon something or other.
I like that. That's a cool mini. Man, I'm really excited to see our coworker who's currently painting Kenny's mini right now. I'm excited to see the end product.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd really like that soon.
Man, I'll remind me and I'll show you later, but I saw on Reddit somebody had 3D painted a Tarrasque, which is one of the biggest monsters in the book right now for 5th edition. And
Like physically large or most
physically
popular?
large. It's like the D&D equivalent of Godzilla.
That's awesome.
So this miniature, they had to 3D paint it with a custom design that they made. And it was printed in 10 different pieces, which then had to be sanded down and then glued together and then prime over. And they did a really fantastic paint job over this entire thing. But the miniature stands 14 inches tall.
Damn.
It's fucking huge. And if you've never seen a Tarrasque, it's kind of like
Like a T-Rex.
like it's
looking
like imagine
dude.
a T-Rex and a crab had a baby together, and then there were just like spikes across its body like a porcupine.
That sounds fun.
So like porcupine, crab, T-Rex.
Nice.
And we are going to fight one.
Well,
Oh.
Maybe,
we'll see
eventually.
what happens.
Oh, yeah. I think I
The
remember
NPC's
talking about
quest.
it at some
Yeah,
point.
yeah. I kind of dropped that little nugget just because I wanted to confirm that there was one in the world. And
Yeah.
depending on character decisions, you know, there's always giant monsters to go fight.
That's true.
That's one thing I really like about D&D is, you know, they just it's at least on my end of things, it's super reactionary to wherever you guys go and whatever you guys decide to do. It's just like, okay, we'll pick out some
like,
cool
let's work with
monsters that
that.
kind of fit this area of the world or whatever.
Yeah. So I was did a D&D session with another group, and I saw that the DM was reading from a book. So it was like a pre-made
Like a module.
Yeah, they
a
have a ton of
pre-made
those.
campaign, and it made me realize how much work you do for our campaign.
I have 3 different Google Docs that I work out of.
Yeah.
One
So
is
like his was already pre-made, and he was like struggling and stumbling, and like Dylan has no problem.
Thank you. I love that facade of readiness.
Oh, it works.
Yeah.
You do well.
And the way that Dylan does it also allows for a lot more flexibility with the characters of being able to do their own things.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It's I love the creative freedom to just say fuck it, I can make whatever I want.
Yeah, if I were DM, I think I would do something similar.
And I think one of my big sources of inspiration is Matt Colville on YouTube. And he has a really good saying where being a DM is kind of like being God in a way, where you can just make up the entire world. But ultimately what it means is you just have opinions about the world. So if somebody asks you, it's like, okay, well, do dragons exist in your world? It's like, yeah, sure, yes or no. It's like, okay, well, are they dumb dragons that are basically monsters, or are they intelligent dragons where they're eternal beings that search out all the secrets of the world, and they have like natural magic abilities?
Right.
So, and then you're like, okay, well, let me think about that. And then some of the stuff is just you're trying to logic through circumstances.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's a nice creative drive. I haven't really experienced anything else that has forced me to use my brain in that kind of way.
Right.
Or like it's a pure fantasy setting, but you're using a lot of logic and reason to come up with all these ideas.
I like it. I do that for fun. So yeah.
I think writers have the same kind of feeling.
Maybe I'll be a writer someday. We'll see.
Hopefully.
So I'm kind of a writer.
Yeah.
Not a successful one
Well, I mean,
by
both,
any means.
both of you guys have done some of your own passion projects in the past doing story writing and creativity and all
Yeah.
I don't really do like story writing, as I just like come up with the world and kind of how I want it to flow, and then
I still
just
think you should
Yeah.
like write out a script or like a basic format for that
which one?
manga.
Kenny's the idea guy.
The-
I'm the script writer.
what is it? You had a story idea. I'm the background character of my own life.
Yeah, it's the main one I want.
Yeah, no, I definitely think like it just for the sake of wanting to work on the project and getting some of that creative energy out, you know, rough drafts on rough drafts on rough
I
drafts.
mean, I've worked and kept working on like how I want the story to go, and it's changed a couple bit with a couple of characters, added them, changed up how I want to do it, and then I've come up with a couple other manga ideas I want to do and work on. It's just like that hard thing of like I can't do the dialogue. Like I'm not gonna do that well. I can kind of maybe like
It's a skill, so like you still
like I
you
can
have to build it
yeah,
up.
It's more or less like I'd rather just like have someone write it up and then like come through me and then be like, you know, I don't like how this conversation went and kind of hand it back. Like this kind
Right.
of how I want it. I'd rather have someone just work
do
it through because
yeah.
I can have the ideas and I know how I want it structured and I know when I hear it if it's good or not. I just like know that I can't provide that actual like technique and stuff like that. Same thing
Yeah.
like the art. Like I don't know
That's-
how the art
that's
wants to
fair.
go and I know how all that wants to go. I'm more facilitating the whole project rather, you know. So it'd be great if like there's people who want to work on something but aren't that creative and stuff. Like they can come up and they can draw and stuff when they have a set idea of what they want to do or what they're told to do, but
Right.
can't function on like the creativity of it. Like that's who I'd work great
you're
with.
a young talent. Let me tell you about how my project manager skills will allow us to create a brand new manga.
That it's there are like purposes for that for sure though, because there's a
Oh.
lot of people who can't
For sure.
manage anything.
And I mean, like the not specifically animation studios, but like a lot of people that do that kind of storyboarding. You know, there's definitely a handful of creative leads, and then a lot of people that are just trying to come up with cool ideas or visuals or plot points and all that stuff. And it's very much a collaborative environment on those larger scale projects.
It has to be, yeah.
You know, I realize like that's the thing I need to work on is like creating like storyboards and rough drafting everything. I gotta get used to like actually at least trying some level of it to hand off to someone who can be like, all right, yeah, this is kind of shit structured or sounding, but
I'm kind of
I
doing
can
that
make
right
it
now
I can make it work.
with my project that I'm working on with my wife and Kenny. Once we get to that point, my wife was like telling me, she's like, I really want to draw right now, so you need to finish writing up the storyboards. So I wrote up storyboards and like it's just been sitting there. I'm like, come on, you literally were asking me for this. You
You
were
missed-
begging me for the art.
There was a 15-minute window that you just missed.
Yeah, apparently.
And I'm waiting on those then art to bring to me so I can color
So you
them.
can color, yeah.
So I don't know why this reminded me earlier when we were talking about D&D. I tend to spend some time searching for it, but it was an article a while back, and it was a haha. I think it was an April 1st type, April Fool's type thing. But it was talking about like D&D getting a name change. And it was like when you're saying like, does my world have dragons in it? And it was
Yeah,
yeah,
you've shown me
it's
this.
like Dungeons and Dragons will instead be called Dungeons and or Dragons, abbreviated D and
Right.
D and /D.
Because there's no stories where there's Dungeons and Dragons.
Well, yeah, it's
simultaneously.
like there's rarely dragons, and then even then, it's like you rarely find dragons in dungeons. The fact that they're so small and cramped, like dragons
Yeah.
just can't work there. Like, what do they have to eat? Rats? Like they just die of starvation.
They
So
eat gold.
Logistically
Duh.
speaking, nah.
But I just thought it was kind of funny. And when you're like, "Does my world have dragons?" And I was just like, I gotta remember. I gotta find that article and
Yeah.
remember it correctly.
That's pretty
That's
silly.
fucking
Wasn't
hilarious.
it kind of like shitty grammar too, or something? I don't know. I was when you told me originally, I was relating it to the infamous news article about is Bruno Mars gay?
Oh yeah.
Does Bruno Mars is gay?
Yeah.
I just thought it's more of like an onion type structure.
Aaron
of
Aaron
onion.
Hansen just got one of those articles too.
Oh my! I watched that video
yeah,
today
yeah,
on the Grumps.
It was hilarious. Yeah.
So one thing that blew my mind about that actually is just there's a length requirement, so they can just have bots write out these news stories and they get published.
I'm like,
that.
I need to write a bot.
I need to, yeah. I'm gonna name him
Bati.
Bati.
Bati the bot.
We need to get a bot that will go through and we need to type out our whole campaign and have a bot read through it and then write their own story from it.
Just train a bot to write a D&D campaign.
Not a D&D campaign, but write the story of our D&D
I
campaign.
hope there's an
Oh, I
entire
see what you mean.
chapter dedicated to fan fiction, like in-game fan fiction.
Yes.
Yeah,
And
it's just like I want to see what it comes up with, like retelling the story.
what is
of,
the
like
book that I
trying to
gave you?
like
Tusk Love.
Tusk Love.
Tusk
oh
Love.
right. Yeah.
the orc.
Yeah.
The
I forgot about
half-orc
that.
love story, and then the
So silly.
sequel, 50 Shades Greener.
Nice. I like it.
I'd love to
That's
hear all
beautiful.
the kneecap shit. It's like a whole chapter on kneecaps.
I'm way too happy about that. So Kenny, what are we talking about this week?
So, 10,000 hours.
10,000 hours.
Oh, like developing
The movie
skills
or the skill?
The skill.
What am I thinking? No, the
I
album.
have no clue what the fuck you're talking about.
Macklemore has an album called 10,000 Hours.
No, so
I have a
it's,
love-hate relationship with the 10,000 hours.
well, yeah, and so that's what it kind of came through because it was running. So where this topic is coming up from. So I was sitting watching anime called New Hope or something like that on Netflix. It's a mech anime. Guy gets in a vehicle, it transforms into a mech. He fights off this big creature.
Fun.
So, well, as it was going, I was sitting there and I was like, this mech transformation, like all of it's really weird. And then like it shows the guy and he's like being like separated into multiple dimensions of like versions of himself and all this stuff. And I was like, very like all being very sexual. And I was like, this really reminds me of a past anime. And I was like, I'll look it up. And lo and behold, the producer was for the same thing. The anime, I think it was
Of course it was.
what's it, Aquarion.
Oh, right.
Yeah. So it was the Aquarion.
I know that
So-
one.
So it was,
I've heard of that.
it was very much just the same thing. I was like, oh man, I remember that. I was like, well, I'm like, that's really cool. Like I noticed these types of things. There's an argument I saw talking about like a new chapter on My Hero Academia, the side story that they have, Vigilante, and they're showing Midnight, her early form of her costume. And it's very like more risque, but she had Gurren Lagann glasses on, and then she had the
Nice.
the naked people's like fucking like belts
Oh, the
and stuff. And then
from
someone,
Kill la Kill.
yeah, and
What is it called?
Yeah.
Nudist Beach.
Yeah, nudist beach. And so they're like, oh yeah, like it's an homage because it's like the same creators. And it's like, no. It's like, well, the same anime creators, not the manga creators. And it's like, no. There's no connection other than that. It's just an homage. Like
Yeah.
Kill la Kill and Gurren Lagann have a connection because of the people who worked on Gurren Lagann created Trigger, you know, or
Yeah,
the people who worked on it, even though they weren't part of Gainax, they separated and went and created Trigger. But like they have no connection to My Hero Academia for the creator. I don't
Right.
imagine.
Like maybe there's some
Lucid,
internal
there might be,
connection.
and it might be
Yeah.
something that I would have to search for more. But at least even on the animation, like there definitely is
On the surface, there is no connection.
yeah, because it's Bones does the anime, and that's even completely separate from Trigger and Gainax. So
Yeah.
it's like no. And I was just sitting there thinking, I was like, man, like I've really learned quite a bit just like from just like random bits of information come at me or just watching an anime. I can tell it's connected to another anime just based on like the producer or something like that.
Right.
And I'm like, this all started because I want to do 10,000 hours of watching anime.
Oh, so
Right.
you're like, what is it? You do 10,000 hours to be an expert at something. No, not an expert.
No, well, and that's why
What is the word?
I think
To master something?
To master a skill
To master-
or whatever.
You're a master anime watcher.
and I'd assume expert, and because I was going on to the idea of expert.
I think
so,
an expert is like doing professional work for a period of time.
yeah, you have to be like paid for it and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I still imagine like expert is still within that 10,000 hours, like
Somewhere in there,
You at least
yeah.
have to have 10,000 hours.
I think it's less
of-
than 10,000 to be an expert, but,
But yeah, so like that's been like my main goal. But then I was thinking, I was like, well, I only know a couple of these things because I've researched further than just watching.
yeah.
So it's like being an expert at something of anime or things like that. It's like goes beyond just like watching it. Like I can be 10,000 hours and be an expert of watching anime.
Right.
I can tell you how soon you should probably skip the intro and stuff like that. You know, like if you don't want to deal with the intro, hit the
Did you know that's one of Kenny's superpowers? Any anime, he can just like,
Well, I see
Click
him do,
at some-
I
some
see
point.
him do it all the time. Where like,
it's remarkable.
well, you've gotten to the point where you only watch intros if you like the song.
yeah. No, that's the only time I'll watch an intros or like Fire Force. I love the opening song by Apple or something.
once
Green Apple.
once every app has the option to skip intros, your
Netflix has it,
your
and I fucking
superpower
love
is
it.
going to be useless.
No, Netflix has it. But
That's
Netflix
fair.
has it because they have people sit there probably and watch it or have
will-
Yeah,
something.
and then
I
just,
will say though, the one instance where it kind of annoyed me was when we were watching Stranger Things, and you would skip through the intro. I was like, oh, I like that song.
I like the intro.
Yeah,
even,
like-
even though it's like it's the same thing every single time.
Yeah.
It's not
Yeah.
like an animated opener. It's just it's a good opening song.
Yeah, but I like I was saying, I have like a love-hate relationship with like the 10,000 hours.
Do tell.
Well, I flip-flop so much of different hobbies and skills that like
You can't
it
get
takes
10,000 hours.
I can't just straight get 10,000 hours. Like I collect a good number of hours in small things here and there.
You will never achieve mastery.
I think I will. That's the thing, is like I have a habit of coming back to things eventually. So I think by the time I'm 60, I'm going to be really good at a whole lot of things. It's just going to take a while.
Well, and so I was thinking, like, what level of like extra things do you have to put onto that? Like, does the size of like if it's like a project, like let's say you're doing, I
Yeah,
don't
I think
know,
I
a
think it
project
really
like
depends on what it is
yeah,
you're doing.
it's like let's say you're knitting like a something. It's
Yeah.
like, are you an expert when you can knit a whole clothing thing, or can you be like, you know, maybe you have to go bigger, like you can knit a whole cover for a house, you know, and that's like shows your expertise.
So
of like
okay,
House cozy.
when
Yeah, it's
I think being an expert is within that field, you're able to do whatever you can imagine in that field.
Right.
So like you have no limitations on what you can achieve, and that's what makes you an expert in something.
So like being an expert in anime, would I have to then be able to produce and do every step from beginning to end of an anime, or would it just be having the complete knowledge of the history of anime?
It depends. It depends on what field of it you're talking
Yeah.
about. Like if you're talking about like history, then you should be able to like point out like large directors, like like
Right.
80% of all like directors and artists and things like that.
Be a trivia master. That's a
Yeah,
good
be a
example
trivia
because
master.
like the thing that popped into my head is like the difference between a master historian versus like a master politician, where master historians know the full history of everything that came before, whereas politicians kind of are working on our current history and the future going forward, you know?
Right.
So it's kind of like the same distinction for your case, because you have a master of all of these different animes that have come before over the past 30 or 40 years or whatever. And it's just a master of knowledge of all that stuff,
Right.
even if you're not quite producing stuff.
Yeah.
And I think those skill sets kind of differ most of the time, you know? And I mean, like, kind of like what you were talking about, I kind of have a weird love-hate relationship with the 10,000 hour thing too, because like for jobs, it's kind of weird to say that you're going to become a master in a specific field.
Mm-hmm.
And even depending on the field, it can change a lot too, because I actually just did the math, and 10,000 hours, assuming in a workspace where you're doing 40 hours a week, is about 5 years of time.
It really isn't as much as you would expect it to be.
It's not. But you think about like,
It's not as much as you expect, but it's a lot more than you think.
exactly.
Like
Yeah.
when you're experiencing it. Because like even in anime, I'm only at like 3,800 hours.
Yeah.
And I'm like, at this point, I'm like, it's going to take me fucking forever. I've been working on this since college, and it's been so long.
But that's just watch time. That doesn't.
Yeah.
That's not counting your like research time.
Right. Well,
Or-
and that's also another thing where I'm like, I've been thinking like, I went into this thinking like, I just want 10,000 hours for anime, but I didn't think about it at first. Like, what did that expertise really, like, what did I want to do? What was it?
Yeah.
And it's like, I think I want to be an expert more on the loose ideas and things of anime, kind of like a broad thing of everything, rather than like an in-depth of the creation and production and the history of that in
Be
anime.
an anime critic.
Oh,
Yeah.
I thought you were saying you wanted to focus on the history
No.
and like general knowledge.
No, I'm just saying like I was just trying to bring up the idea of like if you want to be an expert or something, or even like think of like the 10,000 hours, like you really have to think about like what does that really
What
mean?
does that entail?
Yeah, like what does that entail? What are you really trying to go for with that? Because
What kind of
you
skills
can't
are you actually
can't just
working
be
on?
like I want to do my 10,000 hours in driving. You know, well, is it like truck driving and dealing with
Right.
like heavy loads and dealing with
It's
all
like
the conditions that deal
To,
with that?
to be an expert, what things in that field do you need to cover?
Yeah,
Yeah.
you know, and so like,
That makes sense.
It's a big thing that
I'm
you
working
really,
on that kind of now, where I like to sing, and I'm bad at it. So I need to figure out the things that make me bad. So right now, articulation is a big problem. So I have to do exercises specifically to fix my articulation.
Tongue twisters.
Yeah, tongue twisters. Like one of them is like, "Mommy made me mash my M&Ms."
Mommy made me mash my M&Ms.
Yeah, and then you
That's a
do
good one.
you do that in a scale, going up.
Mommy made me mash my M&Ms.
Yeah,
Okay.
basically, essentially, yeah.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of them.
There's another good one that I like about prepping for like theater times, which is, did Doug dig Dave's garden, or did Dave dig Doug's garden? Which is really good on that the tongue movement to the front and the back of your mouth
Yeah.
very quickly.
I think the muscles of my tongue are weak and I can't move them
Yeah, you got to work
very
on your
quickly.
chops.
I hate it.
But also that's another thing that just, you know, popped into the top of my head about like, you know, also over that span of time where you're practicing the skill for the 10,000 hour period, you got to build up not only like the know-how, but like the practical skills, and maybe applying that to, yeah, I'm thinking about like arts and crafts, about like you kind of get a little more finger dexterity with crafting things, or maybe chopping things, or
Yeah.
like I always think about like bakers. They have really firm, strong hands because they're working with dough all day long, you
Right.
know? And generally speaking, their forearms are a lot more tougher because they've been working on that, but it's
Right.
also a little more grizzled because they're around ovens all the time. So
This is like physiology as well as
Exactly.
knowledge.
yeah,
Yeah. Oh, like playing guitar. I started playing guitar again too. I just like music in general. That's one thing that I come back to at least once a year. I get really into making music.
I was thinking about
And I destroyed my ring finger immediately, so I can't play.
So I think as a side note for me, I was thinking about purchasing a electric bass,
Yeah.
stand-up bass.
How much are you thinking about it?
Do 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 do.
Are you saving money for it?
I mean, I have money saved, and I was thinking about maybe going for that. I was thinking going for a Yamaha,
Yeah.
Or
which is about like $5K.
you could build
Yeah.
a PC.
I mean, I could build a PC, but I've been really
It's
wanting.
already
Like,
got a
electric
PC
bass.
though.
but I've been well. It's not even just like an electric like guitar bass. It's like a stand-up bass where it's like, it's what I did. I mean, I lettered all 4 years.
Yeah,
of high
like an
school
electric
and-
orchestral double bass.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and they're really cool because like in an apartment type thing, like they're perfect. You just throw some headphones on and just
And
start playing.
I play a lot of jazz piano. We can make.
Well, and that's the thing.
make
It's,
some
it's
music.
like one of those
Hey,
things
we
where
can actually like fully finish the intro music.
well, and we can actually do music and stuff. And it's actually something that I was like first chair in for 3 years of high school,
Yeah.
and a lot of stuff. I almost went to college for it, but decided I didn't want to like fuck myself over with how I enjoyed music. So,
Yeah.
but
That's cool. I do not have that luxury though, because electric drums are still loud.
yeah,
Marginally.
Marginally loud enough to make the neighbors complain.
Just get like a little launch pad and do it with your fingers. It's like the same.
I hate those. I'll be honest with
Why?
you. It's just there's something so cathartic about actually having sticks in your hands.
Oh
and-
yeah, no, I know what you're talking
Yeah.
about. But I'm just saying, it would
You're
work.
not wrong.
So okay, let's go back and think about like school and stuff like that. Like, would you be an expert at school, or just because you're in school for
You
definitely
you'd
over
be an
10,000
expert. No, because
and going to school?
no,
but,
you won't be an expert in going to school unless you learn nothing from it.
right?
You know.
so I guess at that level of intent, like you also have to be.
I was also thinking, in order to understand what you need to achieve the 10,000 hours, you need to have at least 1,000 hours in whatever field it is, right? You need to have some level of knowledge to understand what you don't know.
Yeah,
And that's really important.
School is also such a varied thing because there's a lot of different subjects,
Right.
And also, I personally believe that's the primary job of school and having like mandatory education for kids growing up is
Yeah, you're talking about public school.
the development of your brain, and it's actually kind of an interesting thing. I've seen MRI scans of really unfortunate children who have like they didn't grow up going to school and all that stuff, and they were like deprived as children, and just the lack of like having never taken a math class compared to somebody who has taken math class, like the physical size of your brain actually changes with that kind of stuff. So it's kind of like working out for your mind,
Oh yeah,
Yeah, atrophy is definitely a
Yeah,
thing.
But
for sure.
this idea of like I wanted to bring up like when you kind of like hit on it, it's like how much then of like of the 10,000 hours should be allocated to different things, like
Like related to it or just
well, yeah,
general
like you said,
knowledge?
like around like 1,000 of those hours should actually be like in practice.
I think it really depends on what it is.
Yeah, and I think it depends.
So
but
like, if it
what are
comes
those
to
divisions, like
if it
there's
comes to music, it's probably about a 50-50 split between knowledge and
practice.
but you're also practicing the knowledge.
Yeah.
It's kind of a weird thing where like if you're doing music, you need to have a lot of practice in like knowing
music theory
and like specific like chord progressions and changes and how things resolve. And then you need the physical practice to like if you're saying play violin or something like that, you need to work on your intonation, your bow speed, your physical strength of your hands, your vibrato and physical technique.
bass is like all strength.
Yeah. Bass is just like buff forearms.
compared to something else like woodworking, where I imagine some portion of woodworking would be researching the different types of woods and how
Yeah,
to
a
treat them.
significantly smaller
Yeah.
portion.
So we have practice, I guess like research, which could be in history or
Practice,
technique,
research.
or would there be any
Because
others?
I would just say that's you have practice and you have
Practice and
education.
research.
Yeah, practice and education are the two only things I can think of.
Yeah, on a fundamental level, just breaking down learning any new skill, it's just learning and application.
Yeah, and they just vary depending on what you're doing. So
Right.
if you become an expert in I can't think of too many things like theoretical physics, I guess you still do need to practice a lot in that like
Well, you can kind of break
Your
it
brain
down in
needs
the
to be
same way.
spry.
Yeah, well,
In order to do certain equations, you need to be familiar with doing those things, and you're able to bring things up much quicker.
Exactly.
Rather than just the theory. So I can't think of one that is almost all theory or education. History. You don't need to practice history. So
History.
becoming a master in history is 100% study and no practice.
Man, I love history so much, but growing up, I was told it was such a useless job application.
It kind of is like
It's-
you have like a couple jobs that you can do if
Yeah.
you know if you
Yeah,
are familiar
I
with a
think
lot
like
of
if
history.
you have history attached to another thing, it's
I
shit on its own. But
I-
like once you start adding like other sections, like if you're gonna be like
I
a
cannot.
I feel
for
like
the
it's
life
like
of me.
it's like a helper
yeah
of
Yeah.
education. Like it's hard if you're just straight history, then it's hard to get a job. Like you can be a history teacher or you can work at a museum basically.
End up being like Dan Carlin, have a podcast.
Or that, yeah. Like
Which Dan Carlin to me is like the only celebrity-esque historian that I know of. He's kind of like
Yeah.
the Neil deGrasse Tyson of history.
what was it? I really like the Philosophize This Guy.
That
His
one's a good one.
podcast is great, and I love it because like it's so much more history within it too, and he's doing so well of bringing these old philosophy ideas to you as a modern person.
Philosophy is a great example because it's a lot of theory and research in the front end, and then you practice that by debating other people.
Yeah, it is a weird one.
That is
That one's like that one is kind of amorphous because I've seen a lot of philosophy people do really well in other fields that have nothing to do with philosophy.
Whoa.
Like people who studied philosophy help mathematicians a lot,
Yeah.
which is really weird.
I still hold true to the belief that philosophy is really just an exercise in logic and reason.
Yeah.
And if they fine tune that to such a degree with these mental scenarios and thinking through situations that it really is, you can apply that to a variety of different situations, whether it be public speaking or mathematicians or
It's like the ultimate in mental practice.
yeah, exactly. Or even art, like stuff like that, I think is
Yeah.
really cool and it requires a lot of logic.
Yeah.
I cannot for the life of me think of an example that is like pure practice and no research. Like the only thing I can come up with is like those people that
Archery.
just learn by archery. Well, in some ways, I was gonna say like people that learn by doing rather than not doing. So like
Survival.
fucking going back to music.
Survival. No, I think there's a lot of research done for survival.
I don't know. I think like level of survival. I think there is now. Well, and I think that's also another
Millions
thing.
of
It's like
years of trial and error.
Right.
well, yeah, and that's what it's like. It's been so much of like a trial and error thing. It's like a teaching, and then you just going out and practicing. But it's like that. It's like
Yeah.
it's like the straight up practice without research is like a very beginning of whatever it is. Like because you
Right.
have nothing to base it off of. So it's really
Yeah.
anything that's going to be new will be pure practice. Rather
Yeah,
than
initially, yeah.
Well, I was gonna use the example of going back to music. I don't know if you guys have seen the movie from the mid 2000s called Drumline.
I love that movie.
So you've both seen it, right?
Yeah,
I've
I've
seen
seen
it.
it many
Oh, man,
times.
it's so good. So like the main character,
once.
he learned how to be a drummer and percussionist and music in general just by listening. And so he's so ear motivated, but as soon as you put sheet music in front of him, he has no idea. It's like looking at gibberish, So that to me is kind of an example.
Drumline sheet music is the easiest sheet music to read, though.
I remember
Some of the
for-
rhythms get pretty fucked. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's all rhythm.
It's all in one line too.
yeah,
which
like
is
you don't
really
need to
nice.
worry about intonation. You don't need to worry.
Imagine being me having only dealt with one line of notes and then having to go to something that's like a key instrument. I'm like, oh shit.
Yeah,
I have a whole folder of sheet music if you want to look at
I
it.
do too. I have binders and binders, but like, and that's just like one example of somebody learning without
See, and I can't-
research.
it is weird how we're all like musicians, but we never talk about music. It's pretty rare.
I kind of miss it.
I'm
Actually.
all
Same.
sheet music. I can't really do like on my own.
Really?
Type stuff. Just because that's all I've ever played with is sheet music. I've never
I-
really kind of done my own or tried because like with the bass, it's like you're backup. You're never your own thing. Like
That's
you
fair.
are with
Yeah.
other people unless
That's
it's
fair.
like
Yeah, it's
very,
well,
like-
unless you do jazz.
so I was gonna say like unless
But
you're
even then,
jazz
you're primarily support.
You're the rhythm.
and like yeah, I wasn't jazz. I was like classical
yeah.
or
Exactly.
orchestral. I did I was the boom boom boom.
Yeah.
The percussion is very much the same way, where it's just you're the rhythm. That's the most important thing for your place in the band.
Yeah, that's,
Yeah,
that
you guys
was
are
mine.
like opposite of me. I'm like all self-taught. I play primarily jazz. So I need to help you guys out.
Man, I love jazz.
We'll get a little band going.
in high school.
Oh my god, bass can go fast though. I've had some fucking crazy. Like it was like it's like it's really quick
Yeah.
and it has like a big thing when, especially when they're like, okay, we want you to be up at the top and then down at the bottom, and that is a literal 2 feet of movement your hands to do in like a half a second. And you're
Yeah.
like, duh, duh. And so like then it becomes a lot of like, I always think of them as cheat codes. It's figuring out like where like an open string or like a note down here would be like up here, and you have to like
Yeah.
you have to
Yeah,
really
yeah.
like figure out and learn how to manipulate your bass to play those
You got to be
extra
ahead
notes.
of your place in the music. You got to
Yeah.
know what's coming up, and then how to prep yourself.
Really, as long as it's not the highest highs on like the G or the lowest lows on like the is it the E? Something like that. I can't remember now.
I never played bass.
G D E A on the A string on the
It's EA, not AE. Is a double bass just an
Yeah.
octave lower than a cello?
yeah.
Okay. Then it's GDAE, I believe.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I had to sit there and I'm like, yeah, never mind.
Cello is one of the skills that I picked up for a little bit.
GDAE.
Man, it is weird. Like, I don't know, all the different things I do. I just get it stuck in my head. I'm like, I need to try that. Like right now, I want a saxophone really bad. And
My dad played
Sexy
sax.
That's awesome. It's gonna take me a while before I get a saxophone.
Yep.
Yeah,
Dude,
saxophone looks like a lot of
You
fun.
need to do the guy from The Lost Boys.
I've never seen The Lost Boys.
We need to watch The Lost
Oh wait,
Boys.
the movie
Vampires.
The Lost. Okay, yeah,
Yeah, vampires. Yeah.
I've never seen it.
Yeah, we need to watch it. It's pretty good. But there's a buff, oiled up, like half naked guy with a saxophone, just like on the pier of on this beach, just rocking out on a saxophone. He's just this big buff guy, and he has like chains on his wrists and stuff like that, and the sax, and
That sounds awesome.
it's just like this like would be on the cover with like
I know a lot of musicians. Thinking about it now.
I do too.
I know two other people that were both semi-professional singer and violinists.
That's cool.
Yeah,
Lindsay and
Lindsay and
so-
Kaylee. Yeah,
Here's a question. Do you think you have any skills in your repertoire that you've earned the mastery ranking for?
absolutely not.
No.
There's not. I don't think there's a single thing I have that I would call myself a master.
No.
of.
yeah, no.
I have one.
Yeah.
Breathing.
Breathing.
I'm a master of breathing.
Have you ever choked on anything? You're not a master. I'm sorry.
Mistakes null and void the amount of time put into the activity.
I don't know about that.
So for Sergeant X,
You've never just started
if
coughing on your own spit. I swear it's happened to you.
Probably happened to you within this year.
That is the most basic
It's happened to
form
me
of
today.
breathing.
Have you ever just sat there and go,
yeah.
Especially while you're playing games and you're like, oh my god, I forgot to breathe.
I think it's
Or you ever play games for like too long and then you close your eyes and realize you haven't blinked for like 20
Yes.
minutes?
I
You're
think-
just like,
I think that's also another thing is like you can't really like count mastery under like something that's like a natural
A passive skill.
yeah,
Yeah.
like walking or
I'm
all
a
this stuff. It's
master
like
because my heart is beating.
yeah, it's like
Damn.
a
Fair.
given skill like that. I don't think it should really count. I
Yeah.
guess not that like if you are just naturally talented in it doesn't mean that you couldn't gain the level of mastery. But
there's
it's just
still
like,
a level of practice that you
Yeah.
have to have in order
Yeah.
to, like, no matter who you are, you're going to need to practice.
For sure. And then I can think of a lot of examples where 10,000 hours isn't enough. Oh, God,
Is
I
that a
love
baritone
GIF.
sax? Let me see.
I don't remember.
God, I love that GIF.
No, that's
Just
not a baritone.
pelvic thrusting with that sax. It's so good.
Yeah, and he's like huge chains on his fucking neck, and he's all like
Ridiculous.
greased and oiled
Yeah.
up and stuff, and is a fucking funny ass scene.
What is it? If you could instantly have mastery of something right now, what would it be?
counterfeit money?
Counterfeit.
Money. Yeah.
Counterfeiting money.
Yeah. Well, if I'm a master, fucking no one's gonna catch me.
That's fair. How about you?
Oh, man. Writing. I think
Writing? That would be a good one.
I think writing would be definitely one thing I would love to be way more practiced in.
Yeah. Oh, I thought of something I would consider myself a master in. I'll say it after the thing I thought of. I would want to be an artist. Like,
That's a broad spectrum, though.
well, like specifically a visual artist, being able to draw and paint well. Specifically, that's probably what I would pick
about,
because
like-
that's one of the things I struggle with the most.
Do you have a favorite medium?
Probably just pencil.
Pencil.
Yeah, it's just graphite.
I get another one. Running, long distance running.
Hmm.
Well, because that's a joke. Because I have asthma and I also have my ankle issue. So
That'd be funny. Like you're a master and you still can't do it. You're like, sorry, it just doesn't work.
What's that? Oh my God, that one Olympian who
Achilles.
he's missing both of his legs.
Tink Tink. That's his name on was it the Cat Williams
Sure.
special? You ever watch that Cat Williams special?
I think people who are missing limbs and are professional runners are cheating.
Well, okay, so with this
Your
guy,
calves can't get tired if you don't have them. This is a joke, by the way.
yeah,
They're not actually
I
cheating.
had to give you a look.
but no, so it's on like the Cat Williams special. He's talking about like this guy like was a professional runner, lost his legs, and got these like prosthetics, and then went to the Olympics again and got a gold, and then they're like, well, that's considered cheating, so we're gonna take that medal back.
I can kind of see that though.
Well,
like literally, your body doesn't need as much energy to fuel this movement.
So, but I actually think some actually bad shit happened if you research. I think like something with his wife, or beating or
sucks.
killing. I don't remember.
Depression gets bad.
No, I just don't think he was like a great person either. So yeah.
Yeah.
But no, I remember like Cat Williams was like, pull a little tink tink, just tink tink along.
What a great segue this has been.
So, the thing I'm an expert in is developing skills. I would honestly say I'm an expert in that.
Well, yeah, your hobby is hobbies.
My hobby is collecting hobbies, and I can pick up new skills very quickly, depending on the medium. But most skills I can pick up quickly, like especially learning a new instrument. I pick it up super quick, but then I hit a wall. I hit such a hard wall. It's because I have a hard time getting to that 1,000 hours I was talking about earlier, in which I know what I don't know. I just get to that point, and I no longer know where I need to go beyond that point, and then I kind of just struggle.
Yeah.
So that's why like guitar is something I consistently come back to, and every time I come back to it, I get better. So eventually, I'm gonna be a really good guitar player.
Eventually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right now, I'm practicing being able to sing and play at the same time. I really struggle with that. And my strum patterns suck because I spent like 10 years playing nothing but Sublime. So like all my strum patterns are like chick it,
That backbeat, yeah.
Yeah.
So now I'm just thinking of Socrates, where it's like, yeah, where it's like, what is it? You're like truly wise when you realize you don't know anything at all.
Right.
And it's because like once you understand what you don't know, then you know what to do from then on. And that was like his whole thing that pretty much got him killed was questioning people, making them try and realize that they didn't know anything to try and get them to hit a revolution and start to try and learn things for real. And then, instead he got labeled as a sophist, and then got sent to court, and then that whole thing, which I always love hearing. I love that story.
Just go back to the podcast episode 1. The whole story's there.
Yep. But I always think that, no, but it's like, yeah, it's like, you don't, and I think that's also another thing. It's like, is anyone really an expert? Because it's like, you're always not going to know. There's always going to be way more information, especially the longer time goes, especially like doctors and teachers who have to go back to school, or like doctors that are like after a certain point are required to like go and take seminars and classes and stuff further because new technology comes
things
out,
that are
new
like
method, new discoveries.
Things that are a little bit less specific, like software development, for instance. There's always different languages, and you don't know what you don't know. That's what I find the most frustrating. I had a job right before I got out of college. I started kind of interning at this software company, and they were like, "Oh, you don't know how to do this automated testing?" I'm like, "Sorry, I was literally never taught, and I also didn't know that was a thing." And they were really upset at me. I'm like, "I'm sorry, I don't know what I don't know."
Exactly, yeah.
So like,
Well, it's not like they
it's
didn't even hire-
especially hard for programming because like there's going to be like new libraries and things that you've never heard of and didn't even know existed.
Yeah.
And then trying to find those is just as difficult
like
as
new-
hearing about
new
them.
things come up all the time, and then like
Right.
even then it's like in-house things. Like if someone created something just for their specific need that they needed within this place, and like you go and work there, it's like, you don't know this. It's like, how
Yeah.
am I supposed to fucking know this?
Right.
Like, you created it, or like you guys like, use this mostly. It's like it's not in any other field other than like this specific field that this is in now. So of course I wasn't
Yeah.
gonna figure this fucking out. And that yeah.
Where I worked, there was this situation where there was like 3 different groups literally working on the same software, essentially. Like they didn't talk to each other. No one knew everyone else was working on it. They were all coming up with a different solution for the same problem.
Were they competing teams?
No, they're all like together. They just didn't know everyone else was making these things. Like,
solid.
so you don't know what's going on.
That to me sounds like a failure of product management.
I agree.
Well, that's also something like
It happens a lot with software, especially with large companies.
I mean,
It's
it
like,
happens a lot at our job too.
yeah, well, large companies,
Big companies,
Big
they're
companies.
they're wasting billions and billions of dollars every year.
and they don't even know it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, even like anything with like a computer language, it's always changing, and so it's like, yeah, new
Right.
problems will come up, and then new solutions will come up, and just like, I always think because it is like a computer program is just learning a new language, and every language will adapt and change. I think it's like a big
Right.
thing I was reading that's like why languages are like what they are, and like why even like fake languages like Elvish or Klingon or High
Conlangs,
Valerian.
that's another hobby of mine.
or those types of things, they actually are real languages. Like maybe at first they were mocked up or all these other things, but like they really look into language, and the fact that like people use them and create new words for them and create slang.
Yeah,
like,
they're
a big thing.
technically living
like when
languages.
slang is introduced into a language, like that's when you know it's like it's very evolutionary and will survive because it will change as time changes. It can adapt to new technologies and new advancements and new changes within the civilization to allow it to keep going. You know, and that's how like a computer programming, it's like I think of like different methods to solve one problem. It's just like the slang that they're coming up with.
Right. Like right now, I'm working with a environment that is JavaScript, but it's completely different from every other way of using JavaScript. It's called React, and it's just a different framework. So normally you have HTML, CSS, and JavaScript to run your web pages. Now it's JavaScript and what is it? It's a scripting language called Python. Yeah. So like it's basically just those two, and then you use HTML within React, and it's just like a completely different paradigm. So it's like very different.
That's cool.
Yeah. The worst part about learning new things, new languages, like languages that are new versus one that's new to you, is it's really hard to find solutions to your problems that somebody hasn't already solved.
Becomes a big problem.
Yeah. Right now we're doing this, like, it's called an innovation sprint. And for that, I'm learning how to write in Google App Script, and it is so hard to find solutions because almost no one's using it right now. Yeah, it's awful. I'm like, I need to solve just a simple problem. I can't figure out why it's not working.
Yeah.
You remember that
And no one else has solved it.
that game we were going to try and work on where it's kind of like you could just have people, like the game itself would like populate more people if like you had the resources, and people would die off and age.
Yes,
And we were working on that for like, I don't know, like a month.
that one was very short lived. I still want to work on that.
I have like all the stuff I did still.
Village is what it was called.
Village.
Yeah.
Village. It was like like Banished, but mobile based. So like just stripped down, simplified.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I still have everything that I did on there. So populating them, having them die off, have certain variables go below, and then click here on the screen. But like I was trying to solve something and I couldn't figure it out. And I had like 3 different things I had tried, and I had posted them like, these are the 3 different options that I've tried, which one could work and stuff. And someone's like, you literally just put all 3 of those together. And they're like, I've done this before, and like you almost had it. And they're like,
Nice.
I put on a thing and like 8 people like worked on this real quickly, and then they're like, yeah, here you go. Here it is. It's all figured out for you.
Yeah.
You know, it's like all these people had already figured this out, and it's one of those,
Experts.
yeah, and yeah, and they were able to like solve it and stuff like that. But like I was so close, and I was like, after I was like, God fucking damn it.
The cool thing is, like, you learn from that, and you're like, next time that comes up, you're like, oh yeah, obviously it's this.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, so I was thinking this a while ago, but I don't want to intro. So I guess that's another thing. Like in practice and research, like within the practice, like there has to be like a certain level of failure. Like it seems like
Oh, you have to fail.
like you have to fail. Like
If you don't fail, it's not practice.
yeah, well, and you're not learning, and so it's like, do you think it should be in practice, or do you think failing should be like even like a third option? Like there should be an amount that you really have to fail in something to really learn, or like failing is just like within practice. Like
I think failing is part of application, but failing I can think of a handful of examples where you definitely do not want failing to be part of your learning process with a specific skill, like surgeons. Like,
well, and so that's like in actual application, I would say that's why I'm like it would probably fall more
they
in
fail during
practice.
practice.
That's why you'd want them to fail in practice to not fail in application.
right.
Yeah, you learn so much better by failing.
Well, this is one thing I almost brought up earlier, is that there's still things where 10,000 hours is not enough to become even proficient with a skill, So just the flat statement of 10,000 hours is enough to gain mastery in something, I don't think it's true, because like I, it's 5 years of 40 hours a week. That's what you need for 10,000 hours. But you wouldn't necessarily go to like a doctor who's only had 5 years of experience and expect them to help you out with a real medical problem, And
I think I would.
You would?
I think I would. I think it's more hours than it appears to be. But I think it also depends. In that situation, you'd have to define it.
So,
like, are you saying somebody who
like
has had their education, like from the start of their medical education to being a doctor?
Well, you can
to treating
you can think about like 3 levels about like maybe like somebody that works in like a pharmacy compared to like a pediatrician compared to like a surgeon,
Right.
There's 3 different levels of medical knowledge and mastery in a specific skill set. And even then, the higher up you go, the more time you want them to be practiced with something. Like what if you went to a surgeon and it was some kind of medical, like major medical thing,
right?
And this was the only surgeon on hand, and they tell you it's like, oh well, I have 10,000 hours of surgery experience on the table, and I've practiced at failing with people on the table in practical uses. That's going to be kind of disconcerting, because you're looking at the surgeon is like, dude, you trying to kill me right now? Compared to like what you were talking about, like where you're learning up the skill and you're in medical school, that's where you get a lot of your failure out of the way originally.
Right. Yeah, no, you do a lot of mock surgeries before you do real surgeries.
Yeah, or
that one is a tough one to say.
Those dissection labs that we all did in high school.
I did not do any of them.
You did?
I can still feel the texture of like cutting through a starfish with scissors.
What did
it is
you
weird.
How many animals have you dissected?
Only 2, I think.
Really?
Yeah, it was just a starfish, and a frog.
I've dissected 4.
Yeah. Did you take an anatomy class specifically?
I did a frog, a fetal pig, a fetal shark, and then I wasn't part of this, but I had the opportunity to witness an autopsy on a real person.
Yeah, so in my college, there was the CP anatomy and physiology in high school. That was like one of the things, was being able to be around for the dissecting of a person. No, I did do a rat. Never mind, I did do a rat, and it was pregnant. We were the lucky ones that got a pregnant rat. So then,
nice.
Then you had to dissect all the babies too, in addition to that. So,
interesting.
Lucky us.
Lucky in heavy air quotations.
Then there was a pig, but I was switching classes at that time from one time block to another because of another class I wanted to take. And so I didn't get to do the pig because when I was switching, the class I was being switched to had just finished up the pig.
Right.
And so, the class I was just in was about to do the pig.
They were like,
so you're like, you just got in that time schedule where
but like the beginning of the year, they still learned something.
You are.
Yeah, this one's like at the beginning of the year, everyone learned the same thing, and then they like one group would do it in the first semester, and the second group would do it at the beginning of the next.
That's probably
semester.
just logistics.
Yeah, and it was just
like they don't want 30 pigs in at once.
Yeah,
it's like let's do groups of 15.
Yeah, and I was just like fucked. I was like, God damn it! So I never got to do that. And
then disposal of that must be a mess.
And because
there's a process.
Yeah,
I was really shit at tests. Like I knew all my stuff for anatomy and physiology. I was really good at it, and verbally I could like, if you asked me the question, but like when I was in a physical test, I was just like
stress out.
Yeah, I was stressed out, so I didn't get to do the human autopsy, which I'm not too sad about because it's like I have been in like a morgue and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I had a friend whose grandfather ran a morgue, and his mom dropped me and his friend off at his grandpa's morgue. And so we were just sitting like in the downstairs, and he had to go upstairs. And I was just sitting there in this room with his grandfather and the dead guy who had been torn up. He was riding a motorcycle and hit the guardrail on the side and got torn up and died. And so I just sat there while he was re-putting this guy together, like genitals and all, just everything was there.
Just like that, you have childhood trauma.
No, I was fine with it.
Kenny's normal, and that's the problem.
Yeah, no, I was just like, kidding. I was like, all right, whatever. Hey, no, I've had my therapy.
I'm just kidding.
But yeah, well, so that's just one example of how 10,000 hours isn't enough.
I think it's enough.
It's enough.
You would like more, but I think it's enough.
Yeah,
that's the minimum.
I'm not a
surgeon,
a healthcare practitioner, so I don't know about the standards for that. Or I don't know. You can think about something else like the difference between being able to drive a car proficiently versus a plane proficiently versus a space shuttle proficiently.
Yeah.
Like they're all different levels of
Or
experience.
I'm sure there's a lot of things where it's not possible to gain mastery in. Like a field that's so variable that
Totally.
it doesn't matter how much you learn, you're always going to run into something new.
Or on the flip side, there's a handful of people that are definitively the top masters in their field today.
I just forgot his name. The current best chess player. I started playing chess again.
Oh, nice.
What's his name?
I do not know.
He's like a fairly young guy.
Is it a robot?
No, it's a dude.
Okay.
Yeah, and he just destroys everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's weird. Chess is weird. There's a lot of draws in like super high level chess. So like his record doesn't to somebody who's not familiar with it, his record does not look impressive at all. But somebody who is familiar with chess is like, holy crap, this guy's amazing.
Right.
So-
Or another example I was thinking about, like physicists, musicians, athletes. Athletes a really good example of like there's just so many examples of Olympic grade athletes who are at the top of their game.
Yeah.
They're the best athletes in the world right now. Like swimmers, like I love watching swimming during the Olympics because these are people who've been training for their entire life for this moment, and they're at the top of their game.
Not only that, you kind of have to be born with like odd
Oh, yeah.
physiology that is not normal for a human in order to get to that level.
Exactly.
So it's like you have to be lucky on top of motivated.
And it's just awe-inspiring to see people that are just that good at something.
The chess player's name, by the way, is Magnus Carlsen. So he's just like,
That's much more of a normal name than I was expecting.
yeah. Well, there's also a Bobby Fischer. I'm sure you've heard of him.
Yeah, I've heard of
Bobby Fischer is a very famous name. Unfortunately, like these like super top level chess players are known for like kind of going crazy after a while. It's weird.
I mean, sure.
I started playing chess because it's easier than Go.
Yeah.
Like
And you actually have someone to play with you.
that too.
Infinitely
Yeah,
easier.
no one ever wants to play Go with me. It makes me sad. But then like I was like, man, Go's pretty hard. I play online a lot, and I'm just like, I'm sick of losing. Like I'm sick of coming back after a year and then just losing every single game. I should start learning chess.
Yeah.
And I'm already like getting to the level where I can almost beat my wife, and she's pretty decent.
Every time you talk about chess, you're just like, I almost was able to beat my wife. I was so
she's
close to
good.
this, and
It's getting closer every time. Like
Yeah.
I could like her body language is completely different when she plays with me now than it was before.
I'm just imagining her like stereotypical poker status, like sunglasses and like a hat, sitting back, just like straight face through the entire match.
Yeah.
And the game was rigged from the start. Bam, you're already done. Kind of
Yeah.
thing. Like she's just a genius at this game.
She used to her phrase was always, and so it begins.
And so it
She'll
begins.
put one piece down, and so it begins. And like that's when I start to lose. But it's changed. It is no longer that. It is check. So she's definitely more afraid of me now.
That is the most intimidating thing I've ever heard. And
It's fun to like she's good compared to me, but
Yeah.
compared to like somebody who actually plays frequently, she gets destroyed. So
Yeah.
like I'm really low level. I'm at like my rank is like pushing 400, which is not good. Somebody who's like proficient, like fairly proficient, is like 900 and up. So I'm like not even close. She's under 800, but I'm working my way up. I win.
Damn.
I win most of my games now.
that's good.
Yeah.
So I was thinking back because I just binge watched season 3 of Food Wars.
Yeah.
And there's a whole scene within the fight. I don't know how far you got in Food Wars in the manga.
I got all the way to
The
they
declaration
were
of
doing
war.
the
Don't say competition because there's a ton of those.
I was
Tomato-
going to specify which competition.
Tomato
The one where
warfare.
it was like in the winter area and they cooked the bear.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this
Doll
is
bear.
this is a time a bit actually like a battle or so after that.
Yeah, I know I was pretty close to the end.
Well, the end of that arc.
How much longer did it go?
That was like 188.
Could have been more than 50 chapters,
and
right?
they are at 315.
Oh wow, I missed a lot more than I thought.
Yeah,
okay.
no, there's quite a bit. It gets,
maybe I'll pick it up again.
I was thinking about picking it back up, but there's a whole thing. So they're fighting this chick, and she's making soba
noodles.
noodles, and so they're talking about like there's a saying for people who make soba noodles.
Oh, I know the fight.
Yeah, 3 days for the knife, 3 months for the pin, 3 years for the bowl. Mm-hmm. So it's like it takes 3 days to really learn how to cut the soba. 3 months. I don't know what the pin. I guess like rolling it
Rule
out,
of threes.
and then the 3 years for the bowl is just like mixing the ingredients in a bowl. Like you should have
That's-
3 years of experience just to be good at that. And so then they do another thing for like seafood where it's like 8 that they talk about later. But it's like, I guess that's like a thing. It's like also whatever you're doing can be like broken down in parts. And
Right.
it's like
That's a very Japanese way of thinking about learning a skill. Like it's really common for, especially in like food, where like you're not even allowed to go to the next step unless you've spent a specific amount of time in one field. So there's like sushi restaurants. It's like you're not allowed to cook their scrambled eggs until you've been washing dishes for 2 years. And then you get to start looking at the eggs, right? And then from that point, you have another 2 years cooking eggs. Okay, and then you get to cook rice.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, I think
Step by step.
I think here in the West, we tend to like, you're going to learn all this stuff as much as possible from the beginning. We don't do step by step so much. We do like gradual difficulties of the same steps, where in Japan, it's like you break down the steps and you master that step, and then you master the next one. So it's interesting that you bring that up. It's just like, I didn't think of that. It's like a completely different philosophy on learning mastery.
right.
Works pretty well for them.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
pretty cool. Also, it's just funny to me, that whole rule of threes thing, because that's repeated so many times over. Like
Well, yeah, and there's another one which was like 8. There's like 4 8s and stuff like that. It's like, yeah, I think it was just like the saying at that time.
Yeah,
Was,
I always think about the rule of three when it comes to wilderness survival, where it's 3 weeks without food, 3 days without water, 3 minutes without oxygen.
Mm-hmm.
That's the longest you can survive.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have anything else to add about the food wars?
no, I was just thinking of like when they're trying to teach sex in Japan, like what steps do you have to go through?
I think that method, I think probably what that does more than anything is weed out the people who are not going to want to do it. That's probably why they get so good at mastering specific tasks. Like all you do is cook sushi. That's like your life's work, because everybody else who couldn't handle the 2 years of dishwashing just left to do something
Not even
else.
couldn't like handle, like they're like fuck this shit, but it's like
Exactly. That's what I mean.
they're like,
they didn't have the dedication.
if you can't even get past this simple task, like if you break plates and other stuff like that, why are we gonna fucking trust you with like cutting a fucking pufferfish?
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that's probably a good way of going about things. I kind of hate it though. I get really like when I was learning this Korean martial art for a little while, and I was really frustrated because I was really good at learning the forms, and I was literally teaching people above me the forms of their own belt, right? And I was really frustrated that the teacher wouldn't let me go above because I had been there less time than everybody else.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's like, I hate that philosophy, but it probably is really effective.
Exactly. Well, especially in like the workforce, where they say you need blank to blank number of years of experience in this field in order to apply for a job or whatever.
Software is the worst for that.
Yeah, software is really
They're
bad.
like, we need 10 years of experience for this entry level position. It's like, where do you think I would have gotten this?
Exactly. And
Well, the 10 years of schooling that you did, then you also did, internships.
Yeah,
or-
the 10 years of
I think that's
schooling
the thing.
slash
That's like,
internship.
I was talking about this like at work. It was just like people don't like when you're in college, like don't realize how important like those internships really are.
yeah, they
Yeah.
really are.
Like they're really important. Like they're not as like concerned in college of like you need to fucking intern.
They should not call them entry level positions, though.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
I really
They
wish
should
we
call
would.
them junior positions. Like,
Junior
there's
positions.
entry level means like you are going to teach me how to do the job.
Yes.
Yeah,
All like on the job training.
But
you know.
yeah, I've seen a lot of ones that say entry level and they literally have 5+ years of experience
Yeah,
in something.
fucking
It's like,
hate that.
no, you're wrong. That's
Or like I saw this really funny job listing the other day where it was stated as entry level, but they required ideally proficiency scripting in 2 different languages. I was like, that's kind of not entry level.
I think that's entry level.
Yeah,
Learning scripting languages is very quick.
right.
If you have already gone through like college for like software development, you can be proficient in a scripting language within a month.
Right, but that's not entry level. You went to school for that.
When it comes to software, I consider entry level finished college. It's
Okay.
a bachelor degree and no work experience.
Yeah.
right.
That's what I consider entry level.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
That's why it's even more frustrating for me when they ask for 10+ years of experience for entry level, because it's like, well,
Not including college.
yeah, not including college.
There's a there's a company, and someone at work had pointed out to me, and they were talking to me about it, and it's you kind of go through there, and they set up like 3 months of training for different things, and one of them is like software development stuff, and they'll go through, train you on this, and then it's kind of like a contracting company, but you're in contract with them for 2 years, and they'll like send you to places to work, but like you're guaranteed work for those 2 years. You got those 3 months of experience real quickly, and then they kind of send you out and kind of guarantee you that work. But it's like,
I really dislike that type of work. For me personally, I would rather just work for the company that I'm building software for, because it feels like it always feels like your managing company is just taking all your money that you would have earned if you get the job straight up.
100% are.
The only thing about this one is like, it's nice because it's
you get that experience.
And that's what it's really good for, is getting you that experience that you couldn't get anywhere else. It's like, you don't have to look for a job to try and find one that fits like your experience level, that isn't kind of like ripping you off with how they describe it as.
And that's really common here in Colorado. It's like most software jobs are going to be through those type of companies.
And they're getting you that real life experience, and then they're also like doubling down on making sure you at least know what it is, and getting you those 3 months of at least like some like training, like in their place training and stuff. And they have like business analysts, and they have a bunch of other different stuff that they do that for too. And I was like, I like that very much for someone out of college at the beginning. That'd be a really good thing to do. Like, you've had your internship for 2 years in college, you did that. Now go to this company, that they'll make sure you at least get work experience actually practicing what you do. Because there would be places like when I started off at Microsoft, and they're like, yeah, it'll be all this stuff and promises. And then I just sat there clicking buttons, looking at pictures. Boxes. Yeah, making boxes and stuff like that. And it had nothing to do with it. And it's like, yeah, I got to work at Microsoft, but it was, and it didn't provide me anything.
Right.
But it's a nice title to have on my resume, to be like, oh yeah, I worked at Microsoft, which is kind of nice. But beyond that, there's nothing else. So this other one, it's like actually getting you real work experience right off the bat, getting to those companies and stuff like that. And they're just taking that bit from you for those 2 years, and they're just guaranteeing their own pay for that. But it's like, I think at the beginning it's worth it. As you get further down, it's like, oh yeah, if you've been,
it gets harder and harder to justify.
Yeah, the later on in the years that you go and you're working and
I think
stuff
they make
like
you pay for those classes too.
I think they might a bit too, but
yeah, I had an offer for one of those, and they're like, yeah, it's just $100 to take the class, and I'm like, nope.
God, later. I hated that. Yeah.
It's like, sorry, I already owe $90,000 for the classes I took, so no.
Yeah.
Right.
Somebody reached out to me and was like, hey, we got a hold of your resume. We really love your skill base. Would you be interested in paying money for our project manager certificates of excellence? And I was like, what is that gonna like get me? It's like, it'll prove that you've been through a class and you're qualified to be a project manager.
Yeah.
Like, cool. What about the 3 years of experience on my resume that you pointed out that you liked?
Yeah.
And it was just so, I don't want to use the word scam, but like they're cutting corners on experience,
Right. They're playing the numbers game.
Exactly. And like
they're gonna ask so many people until they get one person to say yes.
And like I do appreciate that there are classes like that where you put 40 to 60 hours into this course, and it's kind of like an entry level thing into whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
Like hashtag sponsored by Skillshare. Like Skillshare is one of those websites where you can just go on there and look up literally anything you want to learn about.
Yeah.
They have these long form classes.
Do they do certification on Skillshare as well?
Yeah.
Okay.
Miniature certification. And one thing I actually kind of do appreciate about Skillshare is they have qualified experts teaching these classes for people. So like
they do the same on Lynda.
Yeah.
Lynda's my go-to.
So those kind of websites, I do appreciate the fact that you can go in and do like an entry level thing to kind of kickstart your learning experience with a specific topic, but sometimes it doesn't seem worth it to me.
Yeah.
If I'm in a position where I have like some free time and I want to be a little creative in learning a new topic or skill or whatever, it'd be like, sure, totally.
Yeah. I've done that a lot.
This reminded me of like the Skillshare thing. One of my favorite places to look on, and I need to really take one of the classes. MIT has free courses, like all their courses for like all their different fields and stuff like that. So from astrophysics to all that stuff, they have all their courses up there from past years, like up on their site for free. and
Yeah.
stuff. And so they have the books, the tests, they have everything up there for you to look at, research, do your own. Well, I guess the names of the books, you could like shit to buy the books, but they actually provide all that information because their big thing is like, you're not going to get a degree from us. Like if you take all these classes, get A's, whatever you want, but we'll give you the information because the information or like the right
Makes
to learn,
everybody better.
yeah,
Having the information
it's like
available.
it's like you can learn these. Like we will give you the ability to learn these. You won't be certified by us because you didn't actually come into the class and we weren't able to do anything. But you shouldn't be restricted to the of the knowledge.
I think they also provide like lesson books and stuff and homework as well.
Yeah, no,
Some of them
that's what I'm
do.
saying. They have like tests and they have pretty much anything that from that class happens. Like
Yeah.
you get all the tests, you get all the projects, you get what books they went through, and you get lecture notes and all this other stuff. And
It's
they,
funny that you mentioned that. I like woke up this morning and I was like, I need to relearn geometry.
Yeah, no, go,
It's
go
like
to
Geometry.
I don't know why I was like, man, I suck at geometry. I need to relearn that.
my
No, yeah,
God.
go to like the MIT site.
Yeah, I think I
it has
will.
geometry. It has like even just like basic, just like algebra and all that other stuff. And it's an amazing thing. They even have like if you actually go on campus, they have like free nights and stuff like that where you can go in and actually sit down in the class and like learn
Really?
something. Yeah, like the one
It
of
is
the
cool.
one of the books I have is actually written by a guy who has a whole YouTube series where he just recorded his classes, and that's what the book is pretty much based off. It's like a shorter version of his YouTube series and stuff, and it's for was it theoretical physics and stuff.
Oh,
like
that's
that.
cool.
Yeah, the book.
Yeah.
I can lend it to
Theoretical
you.
physics are a lot of fun.
But it has like all the information on there, and so like he recorded that all on YouTube, and then he decided to make a book, and it's like a couple books that's based on it. But he's I think it might be MIT that he's like a professor at
Yeah.
and stuff like that for theoretical physics, and it's really great. But yeah, no, they do that, and that's their whole thing. It's like it's sadly like it's like a lot of people until after school or till later in life don't realize really what they want to learn and what they want to do.
Yeah.
And by that time, it's like I'm 50. I don't have time to take 8 years out of my life to go and learn all this stuff to be this because even though I really want to like learn this subject, it's like, well, you don't have to. We will give you all that information. You can spend as much time as you want to learn on it. You don't have to spend the money, but you can't like
You'll be able to discover yourself.
yeah.
It's
You'll be
also
able
a
to-
nice refresher.
That's
too.
how midlife crisis happen.
yeah.
Don't build a car, build skills.
Well, it was
Yes.
like I really
I'll
enjoy
do
like
just fine when I hit 50. I'll be like, look, I've already got 8,000 hours in 10 things. I just need a couple more.
Yeah. That's kind of funny because you both kind of reminded me of this funny story where a little while ago I was dating this girl and we were both went to the same college at the time, and my math background, so I was really interested in physics, so I had to take a lot of math to keep up with the physics classes.
Right.
And my peak was doing calculus-based physics, and in order to do participate in that class, I had to take Calc 2 as well as a statistics class on the side burner to keep up with my physics courses. And so I was pretty good at Calc for a while. And then the semester after I stopped taking Calc, my math skills fucking plummeted into the ground. And like a year or two later, I started dating this girl and she was taking her first Calc class. And she's like, oh yeah, you took Calc. Could you help me? I was like, sure. And then she showed me some of the basic problems. I was like,
Forgot everything.
Yeah, no, and I actually had to use those MIT free courses to kind of retrain myself just so I could help out this person with their
Nice.
first time experiencing the math.
well, it's like what
That's cool.
Incredibles 2 when he's like, why would
Oh,
you
why
change
would you
math?
Yeah.
I love that.
Common Core. Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Yeah. I have two teacher friends, and they're like, it's weird.
But yeah, no, it's definitely an interesting facet about needing that kind of experience to become a quote unquote expert in a specific topic. But I don't know. I'm a big advocate for learning. I love learning new things all the time.
Yeah, I
so.
think
Yeah.
that's just like a big thing. It's like if you really want to learn something, like
It's there. It's available.
yeah.
Oh
We'll-
man,
we'll
that drives
spend
me
the time.
crazy. Anytime someone's like, "Man, I really need to go back to school to learn software," I'm like,
You don't.
me having gone through school, you can do it for free. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
My wife especially, I'm like, I can teach you. I literally have a degree in this.
Mm-hmm.
Let me teach you. And she's like, No, I need a
Especially
class.
with
I'm like, come on.
our mutual friend Ethan is teaching himself C++ right now.
Right.
And it was so cool
100%
because
doable.
he was rebuilding his PC, and like the week he finished rebuilding his PC, he's like, I'm gonna teach myself coding.
That's awesome.
And I think he spent like a full Saturday one day. He came back to work. It's like, guys, I have 6 lines of code that actually work.
Hello world. Hello world. Hello.
Yeah.
Hello world.
Yeah, no,
It would be
I've
7, but I
definitely
forgot
been
the
there.
semicolon on the last one.
I remember being really excited the first time I made a game. It was a simple, like, really easy dungeon crawler with a map.
Yeah.
So I was like, I went ahead a little bit and I was doing like object-oriented programming before most of the people in my class. I was pretty stoked for that.
Yeah, for
But
sure.
I think because of the type of education we had at the college we were at, I'm missing a lot of basic knowledge.
Oh,
Like
no,
a lot of things that I should know.
So I always think about like our college experience because it was because it was geared towards game software development. It was very like specified to what we were going rather than
Right.
generalized.
It was a career college.
Yeah, and so I always think it was like, sweet, we learned how to build a very nice doghouse, but we didn't learn all the tools needed to just build anything we would want.
Right.
Like we
I
knew
could
how to
see that.
use a specific hammer, specific level, and these specific objects, and the specific like tools and ratios and all this other stuff. But then
We can build it in whatever shape you want.
yeah, and it will be a really nice sound house, but like when it came to anything that was different, so like if you wanted like a shed for something else, or you wanted to
If you
build
want to build
house,
a kitchen, you're fucked.
yeah, like if you wanted to remodel a kitchen, like we're fucked because we can't do that because like those weren't in our tool sets, those weren't a part of our things, and maybe we could really break down what we learned and build it up and really try and work it out, but like
That's a really good analogy for
I like that
that.
analogy.
I am recently going back and like specifically learning the basics of stuff.
yeah.
Like back like that is perfect with what I was saying before, where I was kind of interning and they were upset that I was never taught this specific thing. It's like, yeah, every other school teaches that, but I went to this other private school that didn't. In fact, that school doesn't exist anymore.
I got by the way, right?
No, they're gone. They
Well,
were completely debunked.
Well,
Or defunct.
because they were part of a larger company. I think that company just like said, screw that way of doing the schooling, and they went
Yeah.
with their other way of doing it.
I wish I
I think it was
graduated.
Redstone, but
Yeah, they did continue with Redstone. I wish I graduated 6 months later because we would have gotten our loans forgiven.
yeah.
Oh,
It was like we just missed the cutoff.
that sucks.
Yeah, and it was a lot because it was a private school. I didn't realize private college was so much more expensive than like university. It was like
Well,
$90,000.
I really wish, though,
Ridiculous.
it's like if I could have still met Kyle and everybody else,
Right, somehow,
and gone to that one in Utah, that would
Yeah.
be so much better. Because like,
or even just see you or something. You
well,
know?
that one in Utah, like its tuition was like way below half of what we spent on ours.
Yeah, but it's in Utah.
It's in Utah, but at the same time, they
Shout
also
out to all the Utah listeners,
Utinians.
Utinians.
they also force you to go on internships at companies.
Yeah.
Like they have them set up with companies and you go out and that's how you have to pass like 6 months of your like you have to spend 6 months like interning at least at like 2 places, and then you get your grade from that, and then when you come back, like that's how you like
Right.
graduate. And then most of those people who intern at those places will go back and get a job there. And that's like how they have a really high like higher rate like after graduation. I think there's like a 90% higher rate after graduation for people. And that's because like yeah, you just worked at a place that already knows how you run. Like why
Yeah,
wouldn't they hire
our
you?
school was like the opposite.
Yeah, our school was like yeah, it was shit.
I do think everyone else that went there should have worked harder trying to get a job though.
Yeah.
But that's part of it. It's like you can't come out of college expecting to have a job handed to you. You should work for it.
Yep.
Well,
I think
that-
that's where a lot of people fail. Like a lot of people are like, "Oh, I have this degree in underwater basket weaving and I can't find a job." It's like, "Well, how many places did you apply to?" It's like, "Well, I applied to like 5 places last week." It's like you need to apply to 5 a day at least, as well as continue to build your skills.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, and that's why like internship was like so much that like I didn't pay attention to that. I probably should have done like I think you were the only one who
Yeah.
did an internship, and
It wasn't even an internship. It was technically a job. I treated it like an internship.
yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was going to help me a lot more. It kind of did. It helped me get more job opportunities that I did not succeed
Right.
in. But
That one last place that you're talking about, oh man, that ended so terribly. The one where they're like, why don't you know this one thing?
Elevator music.
But yeah, no. Well, I've been watching trash TV, like Pawn Stars,
nice.
but on YouTube, and I thought it was funny. Like one of them, he's like, "Can I just like get? I saw you have like a whole bunch of silver there. Like, you want to just do that instead?" And because he's like trying to get, I think it's like 30,000 or something like that.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, 25, this, that. And he's like, how about just 30, but in that silver? And they're like, all right. Because like silver, I guess, is kind of hard to get rid of sometimes in like a pawn.
I could see that.
Like if you sell it off straight out to like a company, then it's like pretty easy, but then you lose a little bit.
But just
like
bars of silver, getting rid of it as a pawn shop, that'd be difficult. Yeah.
Pawn Store is actually really interesting. It is kind of like
It's super fake though.
it's trash because of how fake it is, because they get like all these people, and then like even then like they're like, you have an expert. He's a really good buddy. But I was like watching things, actually talking about like most of the experts are like handpicked by A&E.
Well, apparently there are a couple people that they will bring in as experts, quote unquote, who were people trading in stuff previously in a different episode.
Yeah.
So it's like they have kind of like a set of people that they use.
Yeah, no, they have
For
very
some
specific, and they have
cases.
some of them. Like, there's this guy who used to do their signatures, like.
Oh,
is this-
right.
And like he actually got like caught for like fraud and stuff like that. Like he, or I guess like the person who taught him was known as like someone who would like actually like help people get bad or fake signatures through and stuff and sell them to make money. And then he would make money off of them. And then even that guy got like found out that he had missed a couple, and then he wasn't actually good, and he was kind of not all on the up and up.
Yeah.
And then there are tons of people that are like, these people are on the up and up. There's actually one guy I think you would really like. He has like this, he's very like steampunky in his whole attire and everything like that. And they're like, he is probably like the most expert of all these people, going back to experts.
Yeah.
And like, it's like ancient and weird stuff or archaeology stuff. And he's like been an archaeologist. He's been in movies. He's done music. He's done, he was a big, was it like a magazine model for like clothing and stuff, like in like the 80s.
Interesting.
And like, but like you see him now and he's just like steampunked out and stuff. And he's
That's
like this
pretty cool.
like cool, like handlebar mustache and everything like that. And he's really eccentric, but, I'll have to show you later.
Yeah.
But he's pretty cool. But no, yeah, it's like all those people who do come on as experts, like a couple of them are kind of cool. Some of them you're like, okay, you're really kind of fake. I love people's reactions when they're like, yeah, I want like 30,000. The guy's like, hey, you could probably get like $5,000 from this. And they're like, we have different opinions on that. That's wrong.
Yeah.
I've seen on eBay that this can go for like 25.
I have a friend who does that. Like they find so much value in something they have, so they're like, I can easily sell this for like $200. It's like, no one's gonna want that.
Well, yeah, it's
They're
like,
I've seen it on eBay for $200. It's like, did you see it sell on eBay for $200?
well, that reminds me of, what was it? The Beanie Baby. Do you ever remember that?
Well, you see that a lot with Pokemon cards too.
Oh yeah, Pokemon cards is bad, but well no. So eBay, they're on eBay. There's someone selling a Beanie Baby for like millions of dollars, and it got really big in news, like Beanie Baby selling for millions of dollars, and it's like, you should like check out your Beanie Babies because you could be making like tons of money and all stuff. And it's like no one really realized that this person posted this Beanie Baby and then on eBay was asking people for this money, but it never sold.
Yeah.
And that's because that's not what it was worth.
Yeah,
And people never realize that like what you can sell something for is what other people will hold value to it for.
Yeah.
You know, it's rarity, and a lot of other stuff could definitely bring it up, but at the end of the day, it's like, it's the biggest place is auctions. Depending on how it sells on auction is like what the value of it is really going to be and what people find worth in it is. And then they past sellings and tradings and stuff like that will then also kind of set the price of what it is. But
Right,
like,
that's usually like the starting value, but like the true worth is to the person who wants it.
And then that's a big thing. They're like, yeah, we could sell this for way more money to a guy like one day, or we might have to try and settle for less, you know, in a year.
It's a gamble.
And Pokemon cards, yeah, it's like people are always like, I want like this much money for this
I
whole
want
set.
$200
Yeah.
for this Mewtwo or this Mew card that came from the movie. It's like, no.
Well, no, my favorite,
Literally everyone has that
my
card.
favorite card to see is the first edition Machamp. It's a holographic first edition Machamp, and it's the funniest thing because people are like $150. I'm like, dude, you can find that for like 5 cents online.
Yeah.
I don't think it's $5. I think it's like $1 online or something
Yeah,
like that. But
it's
it's super cheap because it was the most produced first edition card, like out
Yeah.
of any of them. And it's like there's so many of them out there. Like,
Did I give you all my cards?
no,
No? Okay. They must still be in Albuquerque then.
yeah, you've talked about like having your dad send them or something like that.
Yeah.
No, I've had people just like give me their cards. Like there's a guy at work.
I just want you to evaluate my cards.
Yeah, and I do that for people. I've had a couple people at work. I've had
Ethan?
Eagle guy. I'm trying not to say names. He'll know who he is.
You
The
can
one
use
who caught
first
the
names.
hawk.
Birdman.
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 So Harvey. It was Harvey from work.
Harvey Birdman.
Got
Actually,
it.
he does. His name does start with an H. But
I know who
he
it
brought
is.
his cards in, and then I had another coworker of mine. He brought his cards in, and I was like going through. I'm like, I'll buy some of these cards from you. They're like, no, and I'm like, damn.
Right, as soon as you're willing to buy it, they're like, all right, I know it's worth money. I'll hold on to these.
Well, no, and it's like I actually like when I go through, it's like I'll offer a price, and I go on like tons of different sites where it's like I base off the price of like what I could buy online.
I think you should become an expert in Pokemon cards. I think you should get certified. I know you don't think you should, but I just think it would be cool.
I've looked into like card grading and stuff like that, so I can like minorly like assess my own cards and be like, which ones would I want to send in, which ones I shouldn't send in.
Right.
You know, that because there's a big thing where like if you can send any card in to get evaluated from like was it Pickett and I think another one, but you can send those in to get graded all you want. They can be the trashiest cards ever. They'll grade whatever they want. They'll
Yeah.
say it's a 1 or something like that, but there is like you have to spend quite a bit of money to send them in there, and it's like it's better to send a bulk than it is to send a little, and
Yeah.
you want to send the best quality so you're actually getting the most out of your money for it and stuff.
Do
like
they have
that.
like just a flat rate of what they charge to evaluate a card, or do cards that are like more rare?
No, it's a flat rate. Like,
That's cool.
You send your cards in, and they will grade them on that because like they don't they go by like based on the quality of its condition and stuff like that. So like, how are the edges of the card? How is the wearing on it? You know, has it been tried to be like touched up? You know, how is its evenness across the card and its placement?
Are misprints for Pokemon cards valued higher than non-misprints?
It depends on
Because
the
I know that's how like coins are. Like a coin that was stamped poorly tends to be valued higher than a coin that was stamped correctly.
and it's very dependent on how it happens, and then yet again it falls into how valuable someone else is going to take it in there. So like, you know, on Pawn Stars they do a lot with like money and stuff like that, and this one guy had a misprinted $10 bill where it looked like the president or not the president, the guy on it was smoking weed, like a joint. And it's just because like a piece of debris fell in there when they stamped it and lifted it back up, the debris went away.
Yeah.
It was in like the shape of like a joint, and so it looks like it's like smoking a joint.
That's
and he was
pretty
like
silly.
trying to get like sell this mint print, and like we can't really sell this. Like, yeah, it's really cool. This mint print is
but it's not
very
like,
interesting, but it's a common misprint, and that's the thing. It's like, how common is it, and how like it might sell better than a lot of these ones with these comments. Which
that one you'd have to sell like privately to someone who thinks it's funny.
Yeah, but there's misprints like they forget to change the plates on like a dollar bill, and so you'll get like a 10 on one side and a 20 on the other, and that's like
Yeah.
a really big like mistake. So it's like
Yeah.
depending on like
Or
what the
like
misprint is.
double stamps for coins.
Yeah,
Those are big too.
or like, but if it's like the coin like fell halfway in and they stamped it and it's only half of a stamped coin, that might not sell much because it's just like
well, those ones do tend to sell.
yeah,
well.
I think those ones do because I think with coins it's a big thing because it's very
it's
rare.
hard to screw those up.
Well, it's not
Yeah.
hard, but it's like very rare that they'll let those out.
Right.
They're really good at catching those, like the silver
I think
pennies.
one of the most valuable pennies right now is a double printed one
But so like with Pokemon
or double
cards,
stamped.
like cards that are cut wrong and
Mm-hmm.
they're printing and stuff like that are valued way lower because then it's just like a shit card. Like I have one of those where
Yeah.
it's like the card itself is supposed to be like $80, but
Mm-hmm.
because it's printed like I think like a centimeter higher than it should be, it's like complete,
That's a good chunk.
It's complete trash.
Can I see that card?
Yeah, I don't think it's actually a centimeter, but it's,
Oh, okay.
it's
Like a
it's
centimeter is pretty significant. I want to see that.
I'll show you.
Yeah.
It like you can definitely tell that it is off and its cutting was wrong.
Yeah.
But then there's like a guy that I buy some of my Pokemon cards from. He has a bunch and he's online all the time, and it sucks because like I want to see other people's shit.
Mm-hmm.
I want to see someone who's just selling a lot of their cards for really cheap. Because I'm not gonna resell them. I want them for my own purpose. But he had a misprint where it was like a card from like the Jungle series, but it had a different icon from a different series.
Ooh.
So the misprint was like in the money ones where you have a $10 bill and a $20 bill and you stamp them incorrectly. Like this one was a card from one set that was printed with the identification from another set.
Right.
And so that one probably could sell really high. Now
I think there was also one, I can't remember what Pokemon it was, but maybe a Charizard, where the HP color was wrong. something like that.
Maybe.
Like they forgot to like switch inks or something like that when they printed it. So there was like a set of this one card that are like
Yeah.
valued higher because it was just this one
Yeah.
mistake.
And there's like
Or like spelling mistakes, I think.
I
sell
think what's
well,
really
too.
funny is the shadowless Pokemon cards are always considered like a misprint when they aren't. The shadowless Pokemon. So like if you, yeah, so when you look at the Pokemon, you have the square with the picture, and then to the right of it, you'll see like a shadow on the right, like it's raised above the card. Now, this was like a printing style that did in earlier versions. They just didn't add that in there into the stylized, so it just isn't there. So they're considered shadowless because they don't have the shadow.
Right.
Majority of Pokemon cards, like all of them out there that you'll see, will have that shadow there. But the earlier versions, they just didn't have that. They just never came up with that. And so it was a design change rather than a misprint. But people consider shadowless cards as a misprint.
Interesting.
And so much more valuable. Now, they are valuable because it shows that the cards themselves were in a very early edition.
Yeah.
But they always make changes. Like earlier Pokemon cards had red text for their... Hey everyone, thanks for listening to the podcast. We really appreciate the time you take to listen to our ridiculous ramblings. If you like what you heard and you want to let us know, give us suggestions, or even just to say hi, you can reach out to us through our website at nodcast.fm, through our Twitter, Reddit, or Discord, or you can email us at nodcast.fm@gmail.com. You can also find us on YouTube, Instagram, and iTunes. We also have all these links to all these sites, plus any sources discussed during the podcast.